I heard a crazy rumor. Supposedly, you could earn crypto just by making a phone call on your cell phone. I was like, what? I nearly laughed it off, right? I mean, I've seen some pretty strange crypto ideas, but this one sounded too weird to be true. Yet, the more that I heard the name Unity Nodes, the more that my curiosity grew. Was this for real or just another piece of hype? Well, there was only one way to find out, right? So I dove headfirst down the Unity Nodes rabbit hole, and what I discovered honestly surprised me. So, let me take you on this little journey. Now, it all started when I kept seeing the term Unity Nodes popping up in my crypto circles. Now, at first, I kind of just ignored it, right? Nodes, telecoms, nah, it's probably nothing. But then I saw Polkadot's official account mention it, right? Unity Nodes partnering up with DOT. Polkadot is, of course, a pretty big deal, so that got my attention pretty quick. I thought, okay, why is there a major blockchain talking about this tiny little project called Unity? Well, around the same time, I realized that Unity Nodes is also involved with World Mobile and Minutes Network. Now, these are two projects that I actually recognized. So that was it. I had to dig deeper. Now, first off, I do need to be clear here. I am not sponsored by Unity Nodes or anything like that. I am just a curious crypto guy who is sharing his own personal exploration. Now, the only thing even close to a sponsorship here are a couple of affiliate links on my website for exchanges that I personally use. You know, things like Blowfin and BitGet, LBank, Kraken, that kind of stuff. So if you ever do use those links, by the way, it really does support the channel here, and I always do appreciate it. But anyway, I'll always be really straight with you guys. There's no hidden promotions here. Now, let's get back to the main story. So to begin by trying to answer one simple question then, right? What is Unity Nodes? Well, the official description, it sounded rather straightforward. Right? With Unity, anyone can earn crypto rewards directly from their own mobile phones by verifying the global telecoms grid. Right? Every verification call made through the Unity app, it strengthens the network. It documents any faults on-chain, and it rewards the participant. So in plain English, it turns your phone into a mini kind of cell tower tester, if you will. You kind of literally make test calls with a special app, and if the call finds a problem in the phone network, well, it gets recorded on a blockchain and you get a reward. So it's kind of like mining crypto then, except instead of crunching some math problems, you're actually just checking the phone's connections. Now, I was pretty intrigued, but also a bit skeptical. You know, why does something like this even need to exist, right? Aren't telecoms companies already monitoring their own networks? Well, here's what I found, because currently, phone carriers, they do have their own test systems, right? And they do have to test their systems, but not as kind of effectively as you might actually think or want. In fact, billions of phone calls are made every single day, and a lot of them actually fail or have quality issues that carriers actually struggle to detect. So let's think about all the times that you've had a dropped call or a terrible reception, and you wondered if your provider even knew about it. Well, it turns out that the traditional method for monitoring these networks is actually pretty clunky, right? Carriers, they set up expensive testing equipment in a few different locations and hire teams to run audits. But they can only do this, at least only see a small slice of the actual network in this way. So it's kind of like trying to understand traffic in an entire city by only watching maybe a couple of the highway cameras. You're going to miss what's really happening on most of the streets. So it's no wonder that the telecom companies lose billions of dollars to fraud or network issues every single year. They're literally struggling with blind spots in their own systems. Enter Unity Nodes, right? Now, the idea of Unity is to crowdsource this telecoms testing to regular people like us. Using everyday smartphones, Unity Nodes was created with a joint venture by two major companies, right? You got Minutes Network and World Mobile. Now, I'd heard of World Mobile because their mission is to connect the underserved regions, right? They're known in the Cardano community for building decentralized telecom, right? Minutes Network was a little bit newer, but I did learn that they're a telecoms carrier that has been integrating blockchain into phone calls, basically running a global voice network with crypto incentives. Right, now the fact that these two established players are behind Unity instantly made me feel more, and they made it feel more credible and a lot less like some random kind of crypto gimmick. So how does it work in practice then? Well, just imagine, right? You have this Unity app on your phone. Now, it's not a public app just yet. Maybe by the time this video goes live, maybe they've launched. But at the point of recording, it's not quite live. But I have, been wanting to sign up and try it, of course, once it does launch. Now, you open the app, right? And it gives you a very special number to dial, a Unity test call. You hit call and the app routes a call through whatever local mobile network that you're on. And it's essentially just pinging the system. Now, can my phone connect properly? How the call is, at least how is the call quality? And is there any issues? Say the call drops or the quality is absolute trash, right? And the app, of course, is going to know all of that. Now, it automatically documents the problem and sends it hashed record of it onto the blockchain, specifically World Mobile's chain, as proof. Now that creates an immutable log of, hey, at this time and at this place, a call on carrier X had a problem. Now, if everything is fine, the result can be recorded too as a success. Now, either way, you've just actually helped audit the network. Now, here is the fun part, right? Because you actually get rewarded for doing all this work, right? Carriers, they actually want this data because it helps them fix issues and improve their services, right? Rather than paying big firms for audits or not really knowing about issues at all, with Unity, they effectively can pay the Unity network, which then pays you, the user, for running these test calls. Now, the network, it comes as crypto payouts, and it's not just some made-up token with no value here. Unity actually lets you withdraw your earnings in a whole bunch of major cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP, and others. Now, recently, they even added Polkadot's DOT token as a reward, which was the news that initially kind of caught my eye, if you remember. What really kind of struck me here is where the money for these rewards actually comes from, right? Now, I was half expecting a typical crypto scheme, where they print a native token to pay you, and that token eventually dumps to zero, right? But no, that's not the case. Unity pays operators out of real service fees from telecoms companies and carriers. So this is not some kind of inflationary token emission. No. In other words, it's not creating magic internet money out of thin air. It's actually distributing a portion of the actual revenue from companies that need these network tests done. So to people that are actually doing the work, that's you and I. Now, when I realized that, a little light bulb, it went off in my head here, right? This wasn't just another earn yield because crypto, bro, right? No, it wasn't one of those loops. It was more like, hey, there's actually a real job making these test calls that actually has some real value and will be compensating you if you actually go and do it through crypto. So that was kind of like a refreshingly legit way to do business. Now, by this point, I was actually pretty fascinated by it. I kept digging into all of the details, especially the concept of these Unity nodes themselves. Right now, Unity nodes are basically the backbone of the system that enables all of this. So from what I've gathered, Unity nodes are a kind of license or package that you can purchase to become a bigger participant in the network. Now, of course, they're not necessarily going to be the cheapest thing, right? Each Unity node is going to cost about $5,000, and it comes with 200 licenses that you can distribute. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw the price tag, I did raise a bit of an eyebrow. I mean, $5,000. That's a lot of money for the regular retail investor like you and I, for something that isn't even fully up and running just yet. And apparently there are still only a limited number of these nodes being offered out, a few thousand available. So my scam radar, it did start pinging as I kind of mentioned a limited unit, because we've all seen that trick done before, right? I was a little worried, that Unity might end up like some of the past projects where they sell expensive hardware or licenses with big promises and then nothing. But I had to remind myself, didn't I? Because Minutes Network and World Mobile here are involved. Now, these are not fly-by-the-night operations. World Mobile has been deploying actual telecom infrastructure in Africa and in the United States and all over the world, partnering with governments, for crying out loud. Right? Minutes Network has already has interconnections with hundreds of carriers globally. They even list that companies like Skype and major mobile operators are connected to their systems. So, this 5K Unity node isn't just an NFT JPEG or something like that, is it? It actually represents a stake in a real network. In fact, when you buy a Unity node package, part of that $5,000 is not just a fee, no. It actually includes a whole bunch of tokens, the MNTX and the WMTX tokens, and they are staked on your behalf. Plus, you get the 200 license NFTs too. Basically, those minutes tokens and world mobile tokens are staked to your NFT. And so actually you own tokens. That's kind of what your 5K is paying towards, along with those 200 license NFTs. Now, essentially what you're doing here is you're putting skin in the game of minutes, that's the MNT token, and the world mobile token, the WMTX token, and their ecosystems. So they lock those tokens for 24 months, which actually forces you to be in it for the long haul. So if you try to bail out early by unstaking, you're going to forfeit your node. Now that design says to me that they want you to be committed operators, not just people looking for a quick flip. Now, of course, I have no intention, at least right now, of dropping an extra 5K onto this. Now, I'm not made of money, and I've already bought 3 of these nodes. But hey, crypto is pretty risky, and this could be a total flop if things don't play out as expected. But here is the cool thing. You don't have to buy a node to participate, right? Not outright. Because remember, those 200 licenses? Well, the Unity node operators, people like myself and others, they can lease out or give those licenses to regular people who want to run the app and earn rewards. It's kind of like renting out a mining equipment, right? For Bitcoin, let's say. So if this kind of takes off, then I expect many people will actually just get a license or 2, maybe even free, or a tiny cut of their earnings, or for a tiny cut of their earnings, I should say, like a revenue split, from a node holder like myself. Now that means that when the Unity app does go live, I can hopefully snag a few extra licenses if I want, or lease out some of the ones I'm not using, and just, everyone can start making these test calls on their phones without having to pay some of those upfront costs that maybe I have and others have. That is at least the plan, right? In content, I'm in content of being kind of a small fish, I guess, in relative terms, but I'm also about the community here. So anyone who is looking for a Unity license but doesn't want to necessarily buy a full node, you can join our free Discord server and, we can talk, because I do have some spare licenses. Now, before I go any further, I do need to slip in a critical disclaimer, especially since we're talking about potential earnings, and they're pretty lucrative, and of course, some relatively expensive NFTs here. All right, you ready? Here it goes. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, okay, so with that reality check out of the way, let's continue into our exploration of Unity. So far, after combing through documents and even some technical light papers, I had an aha kind of moment where everything clicked together. Because Unity nodes, it's not just about earning a few bucks from phone calls, is it? No. It actually represents a much bigger idea where crypto and the real world intersects together. Now, we often kind of talk about real-world utility in blockchain, right? And this felt like we'd actually stumbled onto a prime example of just that. Now, I realized that Unity is essentially part of this new wave of crypto called DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. So instead of just kind of playing around with digital coins, DePIN projects, they link crypto incentives to real-world infrastructure. Now, in Unity's case, that infrastructure is the global telecoms network, something that we all use every single day when we make calls to our mum or even text a good old friend. Let's think about this, right? The telecom industry is absolutely massive, right? It's around $2 trillion a year globally. And frankly, quite old school in many ways. Now, the idea that anyone with a smartphone could contribute to improving that network and earn rewards for it, that is a pretty powerful concept. This is kind of like Uber or Airbnb kind of vibes, isn't it? But it's for the telecoms data. Now, a sharing economy where regular people collectively do the job of monitoring networks and getting paid for it. Meanwhile, the big players, the phone carriers, they get a flood of data and on-chain proof to help them run more effectively and stop all the fraud. So if this works out as advertised, it's a win-win-win situation, right? Users get to earn some money. Right? Carriers can save money and improve their services, and networks like Minutes and World Mobile grow in importance. My key realization was that Unity Nodes is not about selling nodes at $5,000 a pop. No, it's not. It's actually about building a global community of telecom validators. Now, the money aspect of things, as enticing as some of the earning projections sound, they become secondary in my mind to the network effect here, right? What really matters is getting thousands of people all over the world to run these tests, day in and day out. Now, Unity's model actually reminded me why I fell in love with crypto in the first place. It's it's people powered, right? A quote that I came across from the World Mobile CEO, it stuck with me here. Unity is about people power, real users, not corporations. Drive the network forward and share in its success. Now that hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Right? This isn't just another application. It's a community effort, almost like a movement to democratize a piece of the telecoms industry. So reflecting on this journey, I do have to say that it changed my perspective a bit on Unity and on crypto. Right? I went in very skeptical, right? Half expecting that I'd find a bunch of red flags or maybe a warning to all of you guys to stay away. But no, instead, I found myself excited about the potential that is here. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still a bit cautious, right? Because Unity knows it could face a whole host of different challenges. For one, they do have to actually deliver on the tech, right? And the application, I believe, is in the works and should launch hopefully by this time this video is actually gone live. You never know. And of course, the app needs to work smoothly and has a great UX and possibly on thousands of different phones simultaneously, right? So there's a lot of things there. And of course, the data, it has to be reliable enough that carriers trust it too. So they also need to grow a large user base here. If only a handful of people can participate, well, the data, it just won't be that useful at all. So let's face it, right? Convincing ordinary people to run a crypto application that makes weird phone calls might be a bit of a marketing challenge, but I'm mindful of all of these things and I still think there's a lot of promise here. Yet seeing crypto being used like this, not to just trade JPEGs or to yield farm some magic internet money, but to actually solve real industry problems. This is rather encouraging. Now, it made me rethink how I evaluate crypto projects. Like maybe the next big thing in crypto isn't going to be, at least to look like a DeFi protocol or some kind of NFT game. No, maybe it will actually look more like Unity nodes, kind of this unglamorous working in the background to make sure your phone calls don't drop out. And of course, if it succeeds, then it'll practically be invisible because the best infrastructure quietly does its job in the background, right? But crypto will be under the hood here, powering it all, rewarding people in the background. On a personal note, Unity Nodes also gave me a bit of hope that, at least about the direction that the crypto space is taking. Right, we've had a rough couple of years in crypto with scams and speculations and just meme coins flying around everywhere, right? And seeing a project like this actually emphasizes the transparency, the real utility, and shared incentives that feels like a step in the right direction. It's like, hey, here is a reminder that this technology can be used to improve everyday life and not just as a casino. Right? Even if Unity Nodes doesn't become the next household name, you know what? That's going to be okay. I still think it's going to be paving the way for more experiments that blend blockchain with the physical world services. You see, for me, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on Unity, right? Now, I have obviously purchased 3 nodes already, and I'm not likely to make more investments just yet unless, I start to really kind of see the proof that's in the pudding, as they say. Now, I'm going to commit, to at least 2 years on those 3 nodes and see how things go. But I am definitely going to be trying to participate, in as many different ways as I possibly can. I want to experience firsthand what it's like to mine, if you will, these cryptos by making these phone calls, right? That's just too novel to pass up, in my opinion. And of course, I'm going to share all of the experiences with you guys, right? The good and the bad, if it flops or if it flies, which is what I think is likely to happen here, right? After all, it's backed by Minutes Network and World Mobile. These are titans in their fields. So you're going to hear all about this here on the channel first. Now, if this story has helped you see crypto in a little bit clearer, or maybe a little bit better kind of understanding of what DePIN and how things are working with Unity and World Mobile, Minutes Network, these kind of things, then you can do me a favor by hitting the like button and the subscribe button. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, join our free Discord. Like I said, it's free and it's full of people learning about projects like Unity, just like you and I. Now, we've got a great community in there. The link is in the description, so you're invited to come and join us. Anyway, thanks for coming along with this journey with me, and as always, stay curious and do your own research. I'll leave some links to Unity down in the description. Guys, I'll catch you in the next one.